After I gave birth, my mother-in-law took my baby from my arms and said, "He'll be living with me from now on." My husband shrugged, saying, "She knows what's best." I laughed, pulled out a legal document, and said, "Actually, a judge thinks otherwise." When she read the custody order, her face turned ghostly white. I never imagined that the birth of my first child would ignite such turmoil. My mother-in-law, Margaret, had always been a dominant force, but I couldn't have predicted how far she would go. From the moment David and I announced our pregnancy, Margaret's behavior intensified. She began referring to the baby as her little one and made unilateral decisions about the nursery decor in her home, disregarding my opinions. She even insisted on accompanying me to doctor's appointments, often overshadowing my presence. When I voiced my discomfort to David, he dismissed it, saying, "That's just how she is." As my due date approached, Margaret's intrusions became unbearable. She organized a baby shower without consulting me, inviting her friends and excluding mine. She also began discussing plans to have the baby stay with her during the week, citing her experience as a mother. Feeling marginalized in my own pregnancy, I decided to take legal precautions. I consulted a family law attorney and obtained a custody order granting me sole custody, with visitation rights for David. The day finally arrived. After hours of labor at St. Mary's Hospital in Chicago, I held my son, Ethan, in my arms. The room was filled with a profound sense of peace and accomplishment. David stood by my side, his expression a mix of pride and exhaustion. Just as I was about to drift into a well-deserved rest, the door swung open and Margaret entered with an air of authority. Without a word, she approached the bed, her eyes fixed on Ethan. Before I could react, she reached down and took him from my arms. "He'll be living with me from now on," she declared, her tone leaving no room for argument. I sat up, my heart pounding. "Margaret, give him back," I demanded, my voice trembling with a mix of fear and anger. David placed a hand on my shoulder, attempting to calm me. "She knows what's best," he said softly, avoiding my gaze. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. The room felt like it was closing in on me. Drawing strength from the depths of my being, I reached into the bedside drawer where I had placed the custody papers. With a steady hand, I pulled out the document and unfolded it. "Actually," I said, my voice gaining confidence, "a judge thinks otherwise." I held out the custody order for her to see. Margaret's face went pale as she read the document. Her hands trembled slightly, and for the first time, she seemed at a loss for words. The tension in the room was palpable. After what felt like an eternity, she handed Ethan back to me, her eyes avoiding mine. Without another word, she turned and left the room. David sat down beside me, his head in his hands. "I didn't know you felt the need to go to such lengths," he murmured. Tears welled up in my eyes. "I had to protect our son," I replied. I couldn't risk losing him. The days that followed were a blur of legal proceedings and emotional upheaval. Margaret attempted to challenge the custody order, but her case was dismissed. David and I attended counseling, trying to mend the rift that had formed between us. While our relationship remained strained, we both prioritized Ethan's well-being. Margaret's actions had lasting repercussions. Trust was shattered, and boundaries had to be firmly established. Through it all, I learned the importance of standing up for myself and my child, ensuring that our voices were heard and our rights protected. The next few weeks were oddly quiet. Margaret didn't call. She didn't show up at the hospital again. David went back to work, and I was home alone with Ethan. At first, I thought maybe it was over. Maybe showing her the custody order had scared her off. I was wrong. 3 weeks after Ethan was born, I got a knock at the door around 8 a.m. I was half asleep, wearing a stained t-shirt and holding a fussy baby. I opened the door and there she was, Margaret, dressed like she was going to court or church or something fancy. Red lipstick, sunglasses, heels. Behind her, standing on the sidewalk like some kind of backup, was a woman I didn't recognize holding a briefcase. "Hello," Margaret said coldly. "This is Ms. Callahan, my attorney. I'd like to see my grandson now." I froze. "Margaret, what are you doing?" She didn't flinch. You left me no choice. I'm filing for emergency custody. I believe you're unfit. Unfit? I almost laughed. You've lost your mind. Miss Callahan didn't say a word, just handed me an envelope. It was a court summons. You'll be hearing from my lawyer, Margaret said, and turned away like she hadn't just dropped a bomb on my front porch. I was shaking. Not scared, furious. The next day, I sat in my lawyer's office with Ethan asleep on my chest. He read through the papers and then looked up at me like he was trying to decide how honest to be. She's accusing you of postpartum depression, emotional instability, and neglect, he said slowly. She's also alleging that David supports her claim. I blinked. What? She's got a signed statement from him. Everything stopped for a second. My brain didn't catch up. David backed her up? I remember the way he stood silent in that hospital room. How he didn't protest when she took my baby. And now this? My lawyer leaned forward. We're going to fight this hard. But I need to ask, are you and David on the same page? I didn't answer. I didn't have one. That night, David came home late. I was sitting on the couch with Ethan in my lap and the summons beside me. You signed a statement against me, I said, no emotion in my voice. He didn't deny it. He didn't look guilty either. Just tired. She said you needed help, he said. I thought maybe it was better if what? I snapped. If she takes our child? You haven't been sleeping. You cry all the time. You barely leave the house. I just had a baby, David. He rubbed his face. I don't want to fight with her. She's my mom. There it was. He didn't want to deal with her. So he sold me out instead. I didn't sleep that night. The next day I called my lawyer and told him everything. He told me it was good, very good. If we could prove David was letting his mother manipulate the situation and abandoning his responsibility, the custody case could fall apart. The first court hearing was 2 weeks later. Margaret walked in like she owned the place. She even waved to me. David sat on her side of the room. When the judge asked if I had legal representation, I stood up, baby in my arms, and my lawyer beside me. We're prepared to show that this entire case is a manipulation by the grandmother, my lawyer said. We have text messages, recordings, and signed statements from friends and nurses at the hospital. I watched Margaret's face start to twitch. She hadn't expected a fight. Then my lawyer dropped the bomb. We also have messages from the father, Mr. David Milton, where he admits that he signed the affidavit only to keep his mother calm. The courtroom went still. The judge looked directly at David. Is that true? David mumbled, yes, sir. Margaret didn't move. It wasn't over, not by a long shot. But for the first time, I could see the cracks. After the hearing, David tried to talk to me in the parking lot. She's difficult, he said. I didn't mean to, I stopped him. Don't talk to me unless it's about Ethan. And don't show up at my house unannounced. A week later, I got served again, this time by David. He was now filing for joint custody. I laughed when I read the papers. That night, I called my lawyer and said, I want full custody. No visitation unless supervised. He paused. Are you ready for this? It's going to get ugly. I'm already living it, I said. After David filed for joint custody, things shifted again. Not just legally, but emotionally. I felt like I was constantly holding my breath, just waiting for the next hit. I didn't want Ethan growing up in the middle of the circus, but I couldn't pretend it wasn't happening. About a week after I was served, I started getting strange calls. Blocked numbers. Silence on the other end. Once, someone whispered, "You're going to lose him." That was it. Just that. I hung up and stared at the phone like it had grown teeth. I reported it to my lawyer. He said it was probably nothing serious, just scare tactics. But it kept happening. Then I noticed someone had keyed my car. Twice. Once at the grocery store, once in front of my house. A few days later, my neighbor, Teresa, she's a quiet older woman who watches everything from her window, came over and knocked on my door. I saw a woman come by your car late last night, she said. Tall, blonde, looked angry. She didn't take anything. Just stared through your windows. I knew who it was. I didn't even need a photo. It was Margaret. I called my lawyer again. He advised me to get a Ring camera and keep a record of everything. I did. I also called the police, filed a report, and gave them Margaret's name. They couldn't do much without video proof, but now I was ready. Then something else happened. My OB-GYN called. She sounded confused. Said someone had requested my full medical records using my name, but the handwriting didn't match any of my forms. The office had flagged it and wanted to double-check. I hadn't requested anything. I knew Margaret was trying to build a case to show I was unstable. She wanted proof of any mental health screenings, medications, anything she could twist. It was getting creepier, more invasive. Meanwhile, the legal battle ramped up. David's lawyer tried painting me as emotionally erratic, but their whole case leaned heavily on Margaret's statements. My lawyer was quick to point that out. Notice how little of this is coming from the father, and how much of it is from the grandmother. That's not co-parenting, that's manipulation. We also discovered that Margaret had been in contact with a retired CPS worker. She had asked the woman how to file anonymous complaints. She was planning to try and have me investigated. We got ahead of it. My lawyer filed a restraining order. The judge scheduled a hearing. That day in court, Margaret brought character witnesses. 2 old friends from her church. They both said I was cold and ungrateful. One claimed she saw me yell at Margaret in the hospital. Yeah, I yelled after she stole my baby out of my arms. When it was my turn, I didn't cry. I brought photos, nurse statements, even a video from the hospital where a nurse had clearly documented Margaret's refusal to leave the room during private check-ins. Then I played the voicemail. A recording I had taken from one of the blocked numbers, Margaret's voice, distorted with rage, saying, "You don't deserve to be a mother. He'll grow up hating you." It was like ice in the courtroom. The judge didn't say much, but I saw the look he gave Margaret. After court, I drove home and found an envelope taped to my door. Inside was a photo of Ethan, taken through the window of his daycare. No note, no signature, just the picture. I reported it, gave it to police, gave it to my lawyer. I also pulled Ethan out of that daycare the next day. Everything started to change after that. David suddenly backed off. I think the photo scared him too. Maybe it made him realize his mother wasn't just overbearing anymore. She was dangerous. He called me. Said he wanted to talk. Meet me somewhere public, I said. No Margaret. No drama. We met at a diner on Route 60. He looked different, older, tired. I didn't know she'd go this far, he said. I just thought she was being intense. But she told me she paid someone to watch you. That's how she got the daycare picture. I didn't say anything. He leaned forward. I'll drop the custody case. I just want to see Ethan. With you there. Supervised, I don't care. I'm done letting her speak for me. I looked him in the eyes and saw something real for the first time in months. Fear, guilt, maybe even love for Ethan, if not for me. You'll put that in writing, I said. He nodded, but I knew it wasn't over. That same night, my Ring camera went off. It was 3:17 a.m. Someone was standing at my front porch. Tall, blonde, holding something wrapped in a blanket. It wasn't a weapon. It was a doll. She left it there and walked away. When I looked inside the blanket, I found a note. You're a child pretending to be a mother. He belongs with me. That's when I realized Margaret wasn't just trying to take my baby anymore. She was slipping, losing her grip on reality. And a woman like that, one who believes she's the only one fit to raise your child, is the most dangerous kind of enemy. After the doll incident, I knew I had to act fast. I went to the police again, showed them the footage. They took it seriously this time. The officer assigned to the case, Detective Rosales, was calm but firm. If she crosses into your property again, we'll have grounds to arrest her. But until then, keep every piece of evidence coming. I installed extra cameras, got alarms, talked to a security company, even got a protective order extended to cover Ethan. I was done playing defense. Now I was going on the offense. With my lawyer's help, I filed for full custody, no visitation. I requested psychological evaluation for Margaret. And I submitted every voicemail, video, and statement we had collected. My lawyer even subpoenaed footage from the daycare's parking lot, and sure enough, we found a clip of Margaret's car slowly circling the building the same day the picture was taken. The case started picking up traction. The court assigned a child advocate. They visited my home, spoke to my neighbors, talked to my pediatrician, even interviewed a couple of nurses from the hospital. All of them backed me. Then the kicker, Margaret missed her psychological evaluation. Twice. When she finally showed up, she reportedly ranted about how I was just an incubator and claimed Ethan was her spiritual reincarnation of her late husband. That made it into the official report. David tried to clean up the mess. "She's sick," he told the court. "She wasn't always like this." Too little, too late. The judge ordered an emergency hearing. Margaret didn't show. Instead, she showed up at my house. Again. I was feeding Ethan in the living room when I heard a noise from the backyard. She was trying to break in through the back sliding door. I hit the panic button on my phone. The alarm blared. Margaret didn't flinch. She stood at the glass, screaming, "Give me my son. He's not yours. You're nothing." Cops arrived 5 minutes later. She was arrested on the spot for violating the restraining order, attempted breaking and entering, and harassment. I wish I could say I was shocked. I wasn't. I was just relieved. In court, she looked hollow, pale, like all the rage and pride had drained out of her. The judge was cold and clear. "You're not to have any contact with this child or his mother again. You are a threat. You need treatment, not visitation." She tried to speak. Her voice cracked. "I only wanted to protect him." The judge didn't care. Neither did I. David stood beside her, trying not to be noticed. When the judge turned to him, he added one more nail to the coffin. "As the father, your passivity enabled this entire situation. You chose silence over protection. You betrayed your own family." Then came the ruling. I was granted full legal and physical custody of Ethan. David was granted supervised visits, pending counseling and a reevaluation in 6 months. Margaret was banned permanently. After court, David tried to apologize again. I let him speak this time. "I was weak," he said. "I didn't know how to stand up to her. I just wanted peace." "You don't get peace by handing your child to a madwoman," I told him. He nodded, tears in his eyes. "I lost everything." "I know. You lost your son," I said, "because you forgot who he needed most." And then I left, with Ethan in my arms, and my head held high. I made mistakes too, trusting David, not listening to my gut sooner, thinking I could keep the peace by staying quiet. I won't make that mistake again. This isn't just a story of a crazy mother-in-law. This is what happens when people stay silent, ignore red flags, and let others control their lives. I took back mine. And now? I sleep easy. Because no one's coming to take him anymore.